Good morning. This is retired Pastor Karl Schmidt from Calvary Lutheran Church, a little Lutheran church that's just outside of Buffalo, New York. And we welcome you this morning to our service. We're looking at the January 29th, 2023. We're actually like the third year out of plague and pandemic and all that nonsense. It's been something. Anyways, we're like hopefully coming out of it, hopefully like it's over, except now we're discovering that the common cold, what we used to call the common cold, is just nasty. We kind of forgot about it for a couple of years because we've been masked and separated, isolated, and the common cold didn't have a chance for a while. Now it's come back with a vengeance. So you might not get COVID, but now you're probably fighting a winter cold, which is absolutely no fun either. Anyways, this morning happens to be January 29th of 2023, and it's Transfiguration Sunday, the end of the Epiphany cycle, and as we move through the church here. And so this Transfiguration Sunday, as usually, it's Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 through 9. This is the account of the Transfiguration. So it's the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 17, verses 1 through 9. And after 6 days, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John, his brother, and brought them up to a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with them. Then answered Peter and said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you will, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elias. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were very afraid. And Jesus came and touched them and said, Arise, don't be afraid. And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus. And as they came down from the mountain, Jesus told them, saying, Tell the vision to no man, until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. Here ends that portion of the gospel text. We would like to focus this morning on the second half of verse 5, and that is the word which, the voice out of the cloud, which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. Listen to him. Okay. The Greek for this verse is very beautiful. Outos estin ho ouios mu. This is the Son, belongs to me. Ho agapetos, the beloved, dear, worthy of love. And ho odoika oidoiko means to be well pleased, to be acceptable. Akuete autu. Basically, as a southerner might say, y'all. It's a second person plural. There's you and you. We don't have the singular and plural. In English, it's the same word, you and you. So this means everybody. The Southerners, when they say y'all, well, that's a better way of saying it. Y'all, hear him. It's in present indicative. Active means at all times, and indicative is the voice or mood of that is certainty. The rest of the different moods or voices in Greek all have some degree of uncertainty. But this is, the indicative is always certainty. And active means, hearing is, oddly enough, doesn't need to be active. It can be quite passive. And when we hear everything, we call it white noise, junk noise. In fact, we even have headphones, very expensive. You could spend $300 on a pair of headphones which don't actually play anything. Instead, they just make everything quiet. They're noise-canceling headphones. They actually have a negative wave, sound wave, to whatever noise is present in your environment. So they cancel out by wave manufacturer, whatever annoying sound is around you. So hearing is quite passive, but here it's active. And what does that mean? Well, when hearing becomes active, that means it's that you apply yourself. It's kind of like when wives talk to their husbands, and they're absolutely certain that even though their husbands have two ears, that neither one is actually hooked up to anything. Because they'll say, did you hear what I said? And, this is after they said it 3 times, and the husband just goes, huh? Sure, yeah. She says, well, tell me what I said. Stop at the store and get chicken? She said, no, we need new parts for the vacuum. Oh, yeah, that's what you said, right. Because he's not listening. To actively listen is something that takes the will, it takes some energy, it takes a decision, it takes movement, it takes doing. It's not just to hear something, but to act upon it, in other words. So, again, this is a beautiful piece here, because Utos estin ho uios mu. This is the son of me, the beloved son, my beloved son. En ho oidoikosa, in whom I am well pleased, acceptable. He's by my side, and I'm glad about it. You see, parents and kids. Do I need to say more? Yeah. I put in 35 years active, and then I retired, and I've got about 3 years since, and 3 years retired, and after 38 years of being as a pastor, functioning as a pastor, I tell you what, parents and kids, that is if it wasn't so serious, it'd be a joke, because it is the source of most problems in this world. If people could iron out their issues, boy, can you imagine how life would be if people didn't have any issues with parents and kids? Yeah. But this is a case where the father says of his son, ho uios is a son, mu is my. It's a genitive. It's my son. The son in whom I'm well pleased. I find acceptable. I find delight. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be a nice situation where you could go, yeah, my parents aren't real jerks. My parents aren't real impossible people. They're not abusive. They're not overbearing. They're not mean or cruel or whatever. Instead, you could say, oh, they were nice people, decent people, kind even. I mean, wow. Would that be something, huh? And see, this is why this is such a nice text for us, because Jesus is not the Father's only Son. He's the only begotten Son of the Father, but he's not his only Son. And you and I are sons and daughters of God. And because what Jesus did, not glowing here, I mean, this actually proves nothing. The transfiguration, it was nice for Peter, James, and John, and the account of it is nice for us, but beyond nice, it doesn't accomplish anything. Jesus glowing accomplishes nothing for me. And I don't mean that personally, I mean that collectively. It does nothing for us, in the sense that the forgiveness of our sins isn't accomplished by him glowing, or him being served, or elevated. It's from the opposite. It's from him being beaten down by his Father. It's by him being abandoned of his Father. His Father turns his back on his Son. His Father lays on him the sins of us all, and then dumps on him the wrath of the Father against all of us. Now this accomplishes something. How exactly? Beyond me. I don't know. But this is what God has done. Okay. Way above my pay grade. But since it's bigger brains than I've got, I'll go with it. Sure. I don't know how to fix my car. So when the guy who fixes my car says your brakes are, put new brakes in there and they're just as good as when they came from the factory now, I take his word for it, because I get out there on the highway and we're going 50, 60 miles. Well, I don't drive anymore, but my wife does. And we're going 50, 60 miles an hour. I'd like the car to stop when she hits the brakes. And I actually trust that it will, simply because he says so. I don't stand by. I don't even know exactly what the brake parts look like. But they work. And how they work? Well, because he said so. I mean, you trust the guy who fixes your brakes with your life. What about your life everlasting? You going to trust God? What he says? Because, you don't have to trust the guy who, does your brakes. I mean, you could be coming up to a traffic red light and not hit the brakes and just crash into everybody and go, well, I just didn't trust the guy who said my brakes were fine. Well, not only are you an idiot, but now you're a dangerous idiot and a criminal. But if you don't listen to God, well, leave that up to you, because that's your business, isn't it? But you don't have to listen to him. He doesn't force you. He just makes an offer. You see, the nature of religion, I don't know why people fight about religion. That's the stupidest thing in the world, because religion is nothing else than an offer. The gospel is simply an offer by God. There's no force in it. Even he doesn't force anyone. So why should anyone else? That's what makes people who use force and religion such idiots, especially when you get to be around politicians. They think you can legislate morality. You can legislate laws, and laws are a good idea. But morality? Religion? No, it's not the business of politics. Not at all. Politics is personal, and it's between you and God. And that's where this whole thing comes from here. He makes us an offer to make us sons and daughters just like his son Jesus. That we would be oideko, beloved, acceptable, and agapetos, loved, worthy of love even. That's what ho agapetos actually means, worthy of love. And oideko, so you have agapetos, worthy of love, and oideko means acceptable, one who is welcome. Isn't that a nice picture of a family where there's love and where all the children are equally welcome? See, that's a lot of the stories in the Bible. Joseph and his brothers, they weren't equal. And that is the source of a lot of problems. If you look at the works of Shakespeare, a lot of the problems there are because the way children are treated by parents, quite unequal. And that results in a world of trouble in every case. But that's not the case here. The Father's love is equal. And he receives each of his children with wide open arms. Now I got a question for you. Have you ever met a Christian or any religious person anywhere in the world at any time, especially in your own acquaintance, who has ever stopped sinning? Because I've heard, particularly Christians, I don't really, it's not my thing to deal with other religions, but among Christians, I've heard some say, well, you got to have the repentant life. You have to stop sinning. Have you ever had a kid, if you're a parent, have you ever had a kid who didn't sin? If your name isn't Mary and Joseph, and your baby isn't Jesus? Well, no. Kids sin. You don't toss them out. When I'm talking about the Father who finds you acceptable, I'm not saying you're going to have to stop sinning. In fact, I'm saying you can't stop sinning. You couldn't if you wanted to. Personally, I don't even quite know how to define sin. It's certainly not a little list of things that are right or wrong. If you think that's sin, well, congratulations, you're 7 years old. Sin is something far different than that. I mean, what is so wrong that the Father asks his only begotten Son, Jesus, to die on the cross? Now that's a whole order of magnitude different than a little list of things you either do right or wrong. So if that's your mentality, well, grow up. Sin is something way different than that. And you can't. Well, as long as you're alive, you're not going to stop sinning. Oh, well, you shouldn't try. Although we do, I do, you do. I don't really care who you are. The thing you do still applies. And so this is the thing. The Father finds us acceptable by saying, just like the guy with our brakes. He fixes our brakes and he tells us, your brakes are good, trust me. And we do. We trust him. And when the Father says, I love you, I forgive you, I call you my own, because of what my Son Jesus did for you by my will, I receive you to my side. I call you sons and daughters. I call you acceptable, pleasing, oideko, as well as agapetos, beloved, worthy of love. Will you keep on sinning in life? Oh, sure. In every conceivable possible way? Unfortunately, yes. Jesus says if you even look someone in anger and wrath, well, how is that different than actually hurting them? Really, it's all quite the same. In other words, don't look for degrees and differences in sin in your little laundry list of right and wrong, because that's just a fool's errand. Instead, learn to live with each other. Learn to work with each other. Accept each other. Father accepts you. And he doesn't tell you to stop sinning because he knows you can't. Peter dropped down to his knees, said in the boat there, depart from me, Lord, for I'm a martelos on air. I'm a wicked, sinning husband. I can only imagine. Peter really was. But he knew it. He acknowledged it. That's why we get together in churches every week and start off with a confession and absolution. Because that's where we do start. And that's for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. And one other thing, please don't put labels on sin. Well, this person steals. He makes a thief. No. No. If you owe someone love and you haven't given him perfect love, you're a thief. Oh. Well, that makes all of us, doesn't it? See how this actually works? Yeah. So, kindness, acceptance, love, that's what the Father does. And maybe we can do at least for each other, what the Father does for us all. Again, this has been retired Pastor Karl Schmidt from Calvary Lutheran Church, a little Lutheran church in Amherst, New York, just outside of Buffalo. We welcome you to our broadcast this morning, albeit though it's on the internet now. Take care. Go get your vaccines as they come out, as you're able, and be kind. All right. Bye-bye.